There is something that often happens to very strong people. Most of them don't notice it while it's happening. Strength can slowly turn into something else. And for many people, that something else becomes quiet isolation. Now, here's the interesting part. It usually doesn't happen because someone wants to be alone. And it doesn't happen because they don't care about others. It happens because somewhere along the way, they learn something very specific. When things fall apart, they are the one expected to hold it together. So they do. They stay calm. They solve the problem. They keep things moving. And from the outside, this kind of person often looks admirable, reliable, composed, strong. But something subtle starts happening underneath that strength. The person who handles everything slowly becomes the person who handles everything alone, quietly. Sometimes it begins with something very small. You think about calling someone, then you stop. You tell yourself, I'll figure it out. You start explaining what you're feeling, but halfway through, it suddenly feels unnecessary or complicated. So instead, you do what you've always done. You manage it quietly. And from the outside, nothing seems wrong. You still look composed, still capable, still like the person everyone expects you to be. But internally, you may be carrying far more than anyone realizes. And this is where many people pause. Sometimes the strongest people are not the ones with the least pain, but the ones who have simply become the most practiced at carrying it quietly. Strange thing is, for many capable people, isolation doesn't begin as loneliness. It begins as responsibility. At some point in life, they learn something simple. When something goes wrong, it is their job to deal with it. So they do. They organize the situation, they steady their emotions, they solve what they can, and what they cannot solve, they absorb quietly. Now, most people don't realize how powerful this habit becomes. Handling things internally starts to feel normal. It keeps life moving, it prevents chaos, it protects other people from worry. And over time, that habit becomes automatic. When something painful happens, the first instinct is not to share it. The first instinct is to contain it, to think it through privately, to process it internally. From the outside, this can look like confidence, but internally, it often feels very different. Because being the strong one often means there is no obvious place to fall apart. So instead, you keep functioning, you keep showing up, and the weight you're carrying becomes something only you can feel. But here's the part many people miss. When someone learns to handle everything alone, silence can slowly start to feel like responsibility. Earlier, we mentioned something important. Strength can slowly turn into something else. What it often turns into is self-containment. Now, this is important. One of the quieter realities about strength is that it can make vulnerability feel unfamiliar. Not impossible, just unfamiliar. For some people, sharing pain is something they learned early. They were comforted, supported, allowed to express what they felt. So opening up later in life feels natural. But for others, that experience never really formed. Instead, they learned how to regulate themselves, how to calm their own emotions, how to think their way through difficulty, how to keep moving even when things felt heavy. And those skills are powerful. They build resilience, they create capability, they allow someone to function in situations that overwhelm others. But something interesting happens over time. When you have spent years managing your own emotions, placing that weight in someone else's hands can feel unfamiliar, even when you want support. You may want someone to understand, but when the moment arrives, something inside you pauses, and the familiar thought appears, I'll handle it, again. And this is where many people begin to notice the pattern. What feels like independence is sometimes a life practice in self-containment. Strength is often admired, and rightly so. Being able to remain steady during difficult moments is rare, but something subtle happens as that strength grows. The more capable someone becomes, the more people assume they are fine. The more composed someone appears, the less others check in, not because people don't care, but because competence is convincing. When someone handles everything well, it sends a message, they've got it. And over time, that message becomes a loop. You carry things well, so people assume you can carry more. You stay calm, so others assume you do not need support. You solve problems, so eventually you become the person expected to. even by yourself. And the strange part is, you may expect it from yourself too. So the strength continues, the composure continues, the quiet endurance continues. And sometimes the person who appears the most stable is simply the one who has learned to carry weight the longest. And this is where something becomes clearer. The world often sees strength, but rarely sees the weight that strength is holding. Strength itself is not the problem. Strength is often what allowed someone to survive difficult seasons. It helped them adapt. It helped them remain steady. It helped them keep moving forward. And that kind of strength deserves respect. But earlier we mentioned something important. Strength can slowly turn into something else. What it sometimes turns into is isolation. Not intentional isolation, just the quiet result of carrying things alone for too long. Human beings were never designed for silent endurance forever. Eventually, constant self-management begins to show. Sometimes as quiet exhaustion, sometimes as emotional distance, sometimes as the feeling that you are always functioning, but rarely resting, always holding. And many capable people eventually realize something. They were never isolating themselves because they wanted to. They were simply continuing a role that once helped them survive. Handling everything alone can feel familiar, but familiar does not always mean sustainable. And sometimes the strongest realization a person can have is that strength does not have to mean carrying everything alone. Because even the people who have mastered holding themselves together still deserve places where they do not have to. Strength can carry a person far, but even strength needs somewhere to rest. And sometimes that realization changes everything. That strength was never meant to mean handling everything alone. It was only meant to carry you until support arrived. So if you recognized yourself somewhere in this reflection, take a moment, not to judge yourself, but simply to understand yourself. Because the patterns that helped you survive are not always the patterns meant to carry you forward. And if these reflections help you see yourself a little more clearly, you're welcome to stay with us. New reflections are shared several times each week. And if you'd like to keep exploring them, you can subscribe and turn on notifications. I'll see you in the next reflection.